I went out to dinner last night with Sean, and they had seen Cody previous to dinner, right before, and they were like, where's your wife? Like, where's Robin? Cody said that his wife, Robin, couldn't come because if she did come, she was gonna murder me.
When Brianna Chickenfry sat down for her podcast finale, nobody expected her to drop one of the most mortifying revelations about Kody Brown that we've ever heard. And trust me, in the world of sister wives drama, that's saying something. But here we are, and the tea is scalding hot. Brianna didn't hold back. She straight up admitted that during Special Forces filming, she had to tell Kody Brown that he stank. Not in a subtle, polite way either. She had to directly confront this grown man about his body odor because he refused to wear deodorant.
To my head. Said that she couldn't come to the press because she was gonna kill me. And also, after this goes out and this gets clipped by the Sister Wives people, I'm gonna have a hit out on my life.
Let that sink in for a second. A reality TV personality, a podcaster in her mid-20s, had to parent a man in his 50s about basic hygiene. Someone had to do it, Brianna explained on the Decider podcast, and apparently nobody else wanted to step up. The fact that she felt compelled to address it at all tells you everything you need to know about how bad the situation actually was. This wasn't a case of forgetting deodorant one morning after an early call time. This was a pattern, a choice, a consistent refusal to engage in the most fundamental aspects of personal care that the rest of us learned in middle school. And Brianna wasn't exaggerating for entertainment value. She spent more time with Cody during Special Forces than any other contestant. They were paired together for almost every single challenge, every car ride, every bunking situation after another contestant left, every grueling physical task in the brutal conditions of that show. She was stuck with him, breathing the same air, working in close quarters, unable to escape the reality of what happens when a man decides hygiene is optional.
That he stunk because he wasn't wearing deodorant.
Someone had to do it. But it was out of love. Like, I spent a lot of time getting to know Cody, and I didn't know who he was before the show. And I think someone like him just needs someone like me to kind of rein him in. And I mean, everyone was thinking it. It's just like, who's gonna step up and say it?
What makes this even more disturbing is the context. Special Forces isn't some casual reality show where you get hair and makeup between takes. It's physically demanding, mentally exhausting, and filmed in conditions that would make anyone sweat. Normal human beings would be extra vigilant about staying clean, about not subjecting their teammates to unnecessary discomfort. But Cody apparently thought he was above such concerns. The image Brianna painted is genuinely shocking. Here's a man who spent decades on television, who built his entire identity around being the patriarch of a large family, who positioned himself as this wise leader worthy of multiple wives' devotion. And he can't manage to put on deodorant. He can't grasp that when you're working in close physical proximity to other people, basic hygiene isn't a suggestion, it's a requirement. It's respect. It's the bare minimum of human consideration. But that was just the beginning of what Brianna had to say about Cody's behavior during filming. The hygiene nightmare was only one piece of a much larger, much more disturbing puzzle. The deodorant issue wasn't an isolated incident. It was the tip of an absolutely revolting iceberg. Because as Brianna continued sharing her experiences, the full scope of Cody's personal care neglect came into horrifying focus. And it's worse than anyone could have imagined. Cody wasn't showering, he wasn't bathing, he was going through grueling physical challenges, sweating, getting dirty, pushing his body to its limits in front of cameras and fellow contestants, and then just not cleaning himself. Think about that for a moment. Think about the accumulation, the layers of sweat and grime, the absolute disregard for everyone around him who had to exist in his presence. This wasn't a survival situation where water was scarce or facilities were unavailable. Special Forces provided the basic accommodations contestants needed. Other people managed to maintain hygiene. Other people understood that when you're living and working in close quarters with a group, you have an obligation to not make yourself a biohazard. But Cody apparently didn't receive that memo, or more likely he received it and decided it didn't apply to him. Brianna's position made this especially unbearable. She wasn't just around Cody occasionally, she was his primary partner throughout filming. Every challenge meant working directly with him, coordinating movements, relying on each other for success. Car rides became endurance tests of a different kind. The bunking situation after another contestant left meant sleeping in proximity to someone who had abandoned the concept of personal hygiene entirely. And here's what makes it even more baffling. Cody had had excuses. He actually tried to justify why he wasn't taking care of himself. Not legitimate reasons, not medical explanations, just excuses. The kind of circular logic that makes sense only to the person saying it. The rest of the cast wasn't buying it, and neither should we. What kind of person behaves this way? What kind of mindset allows someone to subject others to their unwashed presence and think it's acceptable? Normal people feel embarrassed if they forget deodorant for one day. Normal people apologize if they're aware they might be less than fresh. But Kody wasn't apologizing. He wasn't embarrassed. He was apparently oblivious, or worse, he simply didn't care. Brianna's willingness to address it directly speaks volumes about how bad it actually was. She described it as coming from a place of love, as trying to help him, but let's be real. You don't tell someone they stink unless it's reached a level that's genuinely affecting everyone around them. You don't have that conversation unless you've exhausted all other options and the situation has become truly unbearable. The fact that Brianna felt she had to be the one to say something, that she had to do gentle parenting with a grown man about basic self-care, reveals just how dysfunctional Kody's relationship with reality had become. And other contestants had noticed too. Brianna wasn't the only one who noticed Kody's disturbing behavior. She was just the only one brave enough to confront him about it directly. The other Special Forces contestants had their own strategies for dealing with the Kody Brown problem, and those strategies mostly involved avoidance at all costs. Randall Cobb, the former NFL player who you'd think would have the toughness to handle anything, wanted absolutely nothing to do with Kody. He thought Kody was insane. He actively avoided being near him, avoided having to think about him, avoided any interaction that wasn't absolutely necessary. When a professional athlete who's been through the physical and mental grind of the NFL can't tolerate you, that's telling you something significant about how unbearable you've become. And it turns out Randall had good reason for his avoidance strategy. Kody called him by the wrong name the entire time they were filming together. The entire time. Not just once or twice in moments of confusion. Consistently, repeatedly, Kody couldn't be bothered to learn or remember the actual name of a fellow contestant. The disrespect is staggering, the self-absorption almost impressive in its completeness. But the wrong names were just one symptom of a much larger pattern. Kody talked constantly. Not conversation, not meaningful exchange, just endless talking. The kind of talking that doesn't care if anyone's listening, doesn't pause for responses, doesn't read the room, or register that people are desperately wishing he would stop. He would just keep going, oblivious to every social cue, every hint of discomfort, every desperate attempt by others to extract themselves from his monologues. The combination was lethal. Imagine being stuck with someone who smells terrible, calls you by the wrong name, and won't stop talking at you. Imagine trying to focus on the already brutal challenges of Special Forces while managing the additional challenge of a teammate who seems fundamentally disconnected from basic human interaction. No wonder people were avoiding him. And here's where it gets even stranger. The behavior was so extreme, so far outside the bounds of normal social functioning, that people started questioning whether something was medically wrong with Kody. Not as an insult, but as a genuine concern. Could someone really be this oblivious, this incapable of self-awareness and basic courtesy without some kind of cognitive issue being involved? Brianna herself went through this thought process. She initially wondered if Kody might have a disability, if there might be something neurological or developmental happening that would explain the complete absence of social skills and self-care. It made her hesitant to criticize him directly because if he genuinely couldn't help it, if there was a legitimate medical explanation, then calling him out would be cruel rather than necessary. But as filming continued and Brianna spent more time observing Kody, a different picture emerged. This wasn't disability, this wasn't cognitive impairment. This was something else entirely, something potentially more disturbing. And Brianna's realization about what was really happening with Kody would change how she viewed him completely. Brianna's admission on her podcast was genuinely shocking in its honesty. She came right out and said it. She thought Kody might be special needs. She wondered if there was something developmentally wrong, if he had a disability that would explain the bizarre dysfunctional behavior she was witnessing day after day. And she wasn't being cruel when she thought this. She was genuinely trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Because how else do you explain a grown man who can't manage basic hygiene, who can't remember people's names, who can't read a single social cue, who talks endlessly without awareness of his impact on others? These aren't just quirks or personality traits. These are fundamental disconnections from normal human functioning. Brianna said she felt bad about even considering criticizing Kody if he truly had special needs. She didn't want to mock someone who couldn't help their behavior, who was doing their best despite genuine challenges. That's actually a really compassionate response to what she was experiencing. She was giving him the benefit of the doubt, looking for an explanation that would make his behavior understandable rather than just inexcusable. But here's the thing. As time went on, as Brianna continued observing and interacting with Kody, she realized that wasn't what was happening. There wasn't a disability. There wasn't a cognitive impairment. Kody was capable of understanding social norms. He just didn't care. He was capable of basic self-care. He just chose not to engage in it. The behavior wasn't something he couldn't control, it was something he wouldn't control. That realization was almost more disturbing than the original theory. Because if Kody had a legitimate medical explanation for his behavior, there would be some grace in that, some understanding. But this was pure choice. This was a man so disconnected from reality, so inflated by decades of being treated like he was special, that he genuinely believed normal rules didn't apply to him. Brianna eventually landed on a different diagnosis. Not special needs, not disability, just someone with a bunch of screws loose. Someone whose grip on appropriate behavior had become so tenuous that even casual observers were left baffled and uncomfortable. And honestly, that assessment tracks with everything we've seen from Kody over the years. The fact that multiple people on that set went through the same thought process, wondering if something was medically wrong with Kody, tells you how far outside normal his behavior had become. When strangers who barely know you are questioning your cognitive function because your actions are so bizarre, that's not a personality quirk. That's a crisis of basic human functioning. And Brianna wasn't wrong to feel bad about the situation. Because watching someone unravel in real time, watching someone demonstrate that level of dysfunction while seemingly unaware of it, is genuinely uncomfortable. But her final assessment was clear. She was done trying to figure Kody out, done trying to be nice about it. She'd seen enough. So what actually explains Kody's descent into this level of dysfunction? Why has a man who once managed to keep 4 separate households relatively functional turned into someone who can't even remember to wear deodorant? The answer lies in a pattern that experts on narcissism have documented extensively. Aging narcissists don't improve, they deteriorate. For 30-plus years, Kody Brown was the center of an entire universe. 4 women revolved around him, competing for his attention, his time, his approval. He could do no wrong because these women had been conditioned to explain away every single failure, every moment of selfishness, every act of neglect. They told him he was an amazing father when he was barely present. They told him he was a hard worker when he contributed almost nothing financially. They told him he was trustworthy when he was systematically lying to all of them. That kind of constant validation, that complete absence of accountability does something to a person's brain. It creates a disconnect from reality that gets worse over time, not better. Kody genuinely believed he was infallible because the women in his life spent decades reinforcing that delusion. They worshipped him, they competed for scraps of his attention. They made him feel like a king when he was barely functioning as a decent human being. And here's what happens when that bubble starts to pop. When those women start leaving, when the outside world starts giving feedback that contradicts the carefully constructed fantasy, narcissists don't recalibrate. They don't suddenly gain self-awareness and think maybe they need to change. They double down. They become more erratic, more defensive, more disconnected from any version of reality that doesn't center them as the hero. Experts who study malignant narcissism talk about this pattern constantly. As narcissists age and face more challenges to their inflated self-image, they fracture, the mask slips more frequently. The behavior becomes increasingly bizarre because they're desperately trying to maintain a worldview that no longer matches their circumstances. And Kody is textbook in this regard. He's dealing with 3 divorces, with children who won't speak to him, with a public that increasingly sees through his manipulation. That's devastating feedback for someone whose entire identity is built on being adored and admired. So instead of reflecting and growing, Kody's becoming more extreme, more erratic, more incapable of basic functioning. The hygiene issues, the social awkwardness, the inability to remember names or read rooms, these aren't new personality traits. They're the result of decades of unchecked narcissism finally collapsing under its own weight. Kody always had these tendencies. The difference is that he used to have a support system of women who would cover for him, manage him, make excuses for him. Now he's down to just Robin, and even she can't keep up with the level of maintenance he requires. Because here's the ugly truth. Kody has never been able to take care of himself. He's always needed women to function. And now that system is crumbling. While Kody was busy embarrassing himself on special forces, Robin Brown was apparently watching from home and spiraling into a jealous rage that would have been funny if it weren't so predictable. Because according to Brianna's explosive revelation, Robin didn't just skip the press events for the show. She refused to attend because she claimed she would hurt Brianna or kill her. Depending on which version of Kody's story you believe, let that marinate for a second. Robin Brown, the woman who literally walked off Coyote Pass because she couldn't handle being in the same space as Mary and Janelle, suddenly wants everyone to believe she's ready to commit violence over a 26-year-old podcaster. The same Robin who avoids confrontation like it's a deadly disease. The same Robin who cries and plays victim whenever anyone challenges her. That Robin is now supposedly ready to throw hands. Cody told fellow contestants Sean Johnson East, Andrew East, and Gia Giudice that Robin couldn't come to the press events because if she did, she was gonna hurt Briana. He literally used his wife's alleged violent intentions as an excuse for her absence. And honestly, the absurdity of it all is almost impressive. Imagine Robin actually following through. Imagine her attempting to physically confront anyone, let alone someone she's never even met. The visual alone is ridiculous. Robin, who needs Cody to fight all her battles, who retreats into tears and victimhood at the first sign of conflict, suddenly transforming into some kind of action hero ready to defend her man's honor. It doesn't track. It never has, and it never will. Robin's weapon of choice has always been manipulation and tears, not her fists. But here's what makes this even more pathetic. Briana had never met Robin, never spoke to her, never said anything about her publicly before this incident. So what exactly was Robin's problem? What justified this level of rage toward a stranger? The answer is painfully obvious, and it has nothing to do with anything Briana actually did. Robin was jealous. Pure and simple. A young, attractive woman spent weeks in close proximity to her husband, and Robin couldn't handle it. Never mind that Briana wasn't remotely interested in Cody. Never mind that Briana actively thought he was bizarre and off-putting. Never mind that the entire experience left Briana questioning Cody's mental stability. None of that mattered to Robin because Robin's jealousy has never been based on reality. For someone who supposedly won the competition for Cody's affection, who supposedly secured her position as the last wife standing, Robin sure acts like she's constantly on the verge of losing him. She can't handle other women being near him. She can't tolerate anyone else playing the role of Cody's caretaker or manager. And when a young woman steps into that space, even temporarily, Robin loses whatever composure she pretends to have. But the jealousy runs deeper than just territorial possessiveness. There's another layer here that makes Robin's reaction even more revealing. Robin's rage toward Briana isn't just about physical jealousy, though that's certainly part of it. There's a deeper threat here that cuts right to the core of Robin's identity within her relationship with Cody. And it has everything to do with the role Briana played during Special Forces filming. Robin fancies herself as the only person who truly understands Cody. She's positioned herself for years as his handler, his manager, the one person capable of guiding him through life. Because apparently Cody can't function without constant female supervision. She's made this her entire identity. She speaks Cody, she translates Cody to the world, she reins him in when he gets too chaotic, too erratic, too completely divorced from appropriate human behavior. And then along comes Briana, doing exactly that job. Briana spent weeks keeping Cody in check, motivating him, managing him, telling him when he needed to wear deodorant, essentially parenting this grown man through the challenges of Special Forces. She stepped into Robin's role without even trying, without even wanting to. She did it because someone had to, because Cody left on his own is a complete disaster. That's the real threat. Not that Briana might steal Cody romantically, though Robin's insecurity about that is palpable. The real threat is that Briana proved Robin isn't special. The job Robin's been doing for 15 years, the role she's built her entire existence around, isn't unique. Any woman with basic common sense and a tolerance for dysfunction can manage Kody Brown. Briana did it casually, almost accidentally, while also doing everything else required on that show. And Briana wasn't even nice about it in the way Robin is. She didn't coddle Cody. She didn't treat him like he walks on water. She did gentle parenting, sure, but she also called him out directly. She told him he stank. She didn't dance around his feelings or worry about his ego. She just said what needed to be said, and somehow Cody survived that level of directness. That has to sting for Robin, because Robin's entire approach has been to manage Cody while also maintaining the fiction that he's this amazing man who deserves her devotion. She performs constant emotional labor to keep him somewhat functional while simultaneously acting like he's a prize worth fighting for. Briana just treated him like what he is, a difficult man who needs to be told basic things, and it worked fine. Plus, there's the age factor. Robin is 47, Briana is 26. Briana is young, beautiful, direct, confident, everything that probably makes Robin feel threatened on multiple levels. And Briana spent all that time physically close to Cody, paired up for challenges, bunking near him, riding in cars together. For someone as jealous and insecure as Robin has always been, that's basically a nightmare scenario. Robin has spent 15 years in a relationship where Cody always had other women as options. She's never not been competing, never not been worried about being replaced. Here's where things get even more twisted. Because we have to ask ourselves, did Robin actually say she wanted to hurt Brianna? Or is this just another example of Kody manipulating the narrative, pitting women against each other while positioning himself as the prize everyone's fighting over? Kody has a documented history of using Robin as a shield. He blames her for things he wants to do anyway. He attributes feelings to her that conveniently align with his own desires. He spent years telling his other wives that Robin won't allow this, or Robin feels uncomfortable with that, when really it's often just Kody's own preferences dressed up in Robin's supposed concerns. So when Kody tells fellow contestants that Robin can't attend press events because she'd hurt Brianna, we need to consider the source. This is a man who lies constantly, who rewrites history in real time, who can't keep his own stories straight from one interview to the next. Why would we take his word about Robin's alleged violent intentions? Maybe Robin did say something in the heat of jealousy. Maybe she was upset about Brianna's proximity to Kody during filming and expressed that frustration in exaggerated terms. Or maybe Kody completely fabricated or inflated the whole thing because it served his purposes. It lets him explain Robin's absence without admitting she probably just didn't want to deal with the hassle. It creates drama between women, which Kody has always enjoyed, and it positions him as desirable enough that women are ready to fight over him. Because let's be honest, Kody loves this narrative. He loves the idea that Robin is so possessive, so territorial that she can't handle other women being near him. It feeds his ego. It makes him feel like the center of the universe again, like he's still the prize that multiple women are competing for, even though 3 of his 4 wives have left him and his remaining wife is stuck with him more out of sunk cost than genuine desire. And Kody has always been skilled at weaponizing Robin against anyone who challenges him. He used her against Mary, against Janelle, against Christine. He'd create situations where Robin was positioned as the obstacle, the one with hurt feelings, the one who needed protection. It deflected blame from himself, while also creating conflict between the women. This situation with Brianna fits that exact pattern. Kody gets to avoid questions about why Robin isn't there. He gets to create a story where Brianna is somehow a threat, where Robin is the protective wife defending her territory. He manufactures drama that centers him as the object of desire and conflict. And he does it all while maintaining plausible deniability because he's just reporting what Robin supposedly said. The truth is probably much simpler and much less dramatic. Robin didn't attend because she has 2 school-age kids at home and traveling for press events wasn't worth the logistical hassle. But that explanation doesn't feed Kody's ego or create the kind of drama he thrives on. Step back and look at the bigger picture here, because what emerges is genuinely pathetic. Kody Brown is a man who has never been able to function without women managing every aspect of his existence. Not just emotional support or partnership, but actual basic life management that most adults handle independently. For 30 years, he had 4 wives covering different aspects of his dysfunction. Christine handled the kids and the household. Janelle managed finances and brought in actual income. Mary dealt with the practical logistics of their lives. And Robin, well, Robin managed Kody himself. The most challenging job of all, apparently. Between the 4 of them, they created a system where Kody could maintain the illusion of being a functional patriarch while actually contributing almost nothing. They reminded him about his children's birthdays, they managed schedules so he'd show up where he needed to be, they handled conflicts and smoothed over his mistakes with the kids. They made excuses for his absences and justified his neglect. They maintained households while he wandered between them like some kind of king making royal visits. And they did all of this while also propping up his ego, telling him what an amazing man and father he was. Without that support system, Kody falls apart, and we saw that clearly during Special Forces. Here he is in an environment where he doesn't have his wives managing him, and within days, Brianna has to step into that role. She's doing gentle parenting with a grown man, telling him basic things like wear deodorant and stop talking so much. She's managing him through challenges, keeping him motivated, essentially babysitting someone old enough to be her father. And she didn't sign up for that job. Nobody on that show expected to have to parent Kody Brown, but someone had to do it because left to his own devices, Kody is apparently incapable of basic self-care and social awareness. He needs a woman to tell him to shower. He needs someone to monitor his behavior and rein him in when he gets too erratic. He needs constant management just to maintain the baseline of acceptable human functioning. That's not a partnership. That's not what healthy relationships look like. That's a man who has never developed the skills necessary to exist as an independent adult because he's always had women doing that work for him. And now he's down to just Robin, which means she's shouldering the entire burden of keeping Kody somewhat functional. No wonder Robin felt threatened by Brianna. For those weeks of filming, Brianna was doing Robin's exhausting, thankless job. She was keeping Kody in check, managing his chaos, dealing with his dysfunction, and she made it look easy or at least manageable, which probably made Robin realize just how much labor she's been putting into to a man who will never actually be capable of functioning independently. The sister wives spent decades enabling Kody's helplessness. They created a monster who genuinely believes he's special when really he's just deeply dependent on female caretaking to survive. In the end, Brianna Chickenfry came to a conclusion that feels both simple and profound. After spending weeks with Kody, after trying to figure him out, after initially wondering if he had a disability that would explain his behavior, she landed on this: he's got a bunch of screws loose and she doesn't want to touch it anymore. That assessment is honestly more damning than any elaborate criticism could be. Brianna tried. She gave Kody the benefit of the doubt. She was kind to him during filming when others actively avoided him. She performed emotional labor trying to understand what was happening with this man. And ultimately, she walked away thinking he's just too broken, too dysfunctional, too exhausting to even comment on further. But here's what makes Brianna's role in all of this genuinely important. She's a 26-year-old woman who accomplished something Kody's own adult children have never managed to do publicly. She held him accountable, she called out his treatment of women, she pointed out his creepy behavior, his hygiene failures, his complete inability to function like a decent human being. And she did it without apology, without softening it, without making excuses for him. Kody has children in their 20s and 30s. He has kids who've watched him neglect and abuse their mothers for years. And while some have privately distanced themselves, while some have stopped speaking to him entirely, none have publicly dragged him the way Brianna did. She had no familial obligation to protect him, no complicated history making her hesitant to speak the truth. She just said what needed to be said, and the sister wives community has absolutely celebrated her for it. Because finally, someone with a platform looked at Kody Brown and said out loud what everyone's been thinking. He's not misunderstood, he's not going through a difficult time, he's not a victim of circumstances or editing. He's just a dysfunctional man who treats women terribly and has been getting away with it for far too long. The irony of Robin's jealous rage is that Brianna wasn't charmed by Kody at all. She wasn't interested, she didn't see anything worth fighting over. She saw a man who couldn't manage basic hygiene, who talked incessantly without self-awareness, who needed constant supervision to function. That's not a prize, that's a burden. And Brianna recognized it immediately. So where does this leave us? Robin still hasn't publicly responded, though US Weekly reached out for comment. Will she break her silence? Will she try to defend Kody or justify her alleged threats toward Brianna? Or will she continue hiding behind Kody, letting him speak for her, maintaining the fiction that she's the protective wife defending her territory? And what about Kody? He's already shown he can't handle criticism. He spirals when faced with accountability. How will he react to Brianna's continued honesty about his failures? The fallout from Special Forces is far from over, and honestly, it's only going to get messier from here. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.